Hello, everybody. Brian Broaddus here, and welcome to The Stack, our weekly look at all things NFL, all things NFL draft. Joined here by my scouting buddy and partner on 105.3 The Fan, Zach Wolchuk. Aisha Morrison out again this week. Please send her some love, as we like to say on social media. She'll be back with us next week. We miss her. 2i is always great for these conversations and stuff like that. All right, well, Chuck, NFL schedule was dropped yesterday. You and I, let's go behind the scenes here. You and I have now made this a yearly game.
It's fun.
We've made this a yearly game, and there's probably people out there right now, and you said this in our little pre-show discussion, there's probably people out there that were following along, you and I, and they were like, why do you guys care so much?
Yeah.
But I've, over the years, developed, I always like to try and figure out things that if the league or somebody's trying to hide something from me, I'm trying to figure out, okay, why you're trying to hide this. But if you're going to give me clues and let me have interaction with friends around the league, I'm going to get your schedule figured out. I'm going to get, now I might not have all the times, but you and I worked on this thing, and I want to say by about 3 o'clock Central, we had this thing wired.
We did, and we were perfect. We had it all down, even with, I think the late edition was the Packers Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we had all the primetime games figured out as well.
Yeah. So it was kind of neat. They do give you little hints. But if you know people around the league, like, hey, when do you there's places I worked, Green Bay, Jacksonville, Philly, I've worked some places. So, and you get to meet people, hey, San Francisco, buddy, you hear anything about, I think you guys are playing, I think we're playing, so it was. That's the fun thing about it, is trying to kind of put it together. The league likes to give you the little bit of hints. First impression when you say, and by the way, what we're going to do here today is we're going to go through the schedule, but Zach and I are going to go through and kind of remind you of maybe a player or two that this team drafted that we talked about, whether it was on the stack or the doing all right, or what we did on 105.3 The Fan, or what we did with Love of the Star. There was a lot. You and I are on a lot of platforms together, but that's what we're going to try and do today. So, but your first impression, and again, you were into it.
Oh yeah.
So you're building it.
Yeah. As
you're building it, were there things that you were kind of looking at that you were going, boy, this doesn't play well, or man, the league gave the Cowboys a break here?
Yeah, well, you were on it quick about, okay, like the Week 14 bye. You're always, where's the bye week fall? And for the Cowboys initially, I'm like, dang, Week 14, that's really, really late in the year. Actually, I kind of like it when we're looking at kind of how this is played out, because they've got a tough travel stretch where Week 3, you've got the Brazil game against Baltimore, and then you've got a quick turnaround 2 weeks later. You got the Houston game, so that's kind of a light travel, but then the Bucs on Thursday night. But the good thing is here, you now have it stacked twice for you, where you get the Thursday night game against the Bucs Week 5, which kind of builds in a mini bye heading into the Packers game, which is nice, extra time to prep for that, and maybe Mike is back, maybe Mike is not. But then also Thanksgiving, you've got a mini bye built in too with that extra rest, and then you're playing on Monday Night Football against Seattle. So I think in terms of the Cowboys' tougher, at least right now, projecting ahead, what could be their more challenging opponents, they've kind of got some added rest and added prep time going into games against Tampa Bay, or against Green Bay, against Seattle, and then against the Rams. They've got the bye week before that, before you get into the final 4 games of your schedule. So it kind of broke away nicely, I think, based on the pockets they ended up getting.
I was sitting there thinking, because as we were working on the schedule, I was talking with Todd Archer from ESPN, and we were trying to figure out Week 4. And this is where Todd Archer always makes logic. He's thinking, all right, you're going on an 11-hour trip the previous week. You're thinking about, okay, if you're going to make Dallas have to play on the road, where's the best place to put them? Well, Houston's a tough place to play. We know that. Houston's got, I think they were 7-1 at home last year. Houston can be a very tough place to play because of that defense. But when you start to think about, because the Cowboys coming back from Rio de Janeiro, that's an 11-hour flight. And hopefully, and after a game, there's going to be some sore gentlemen on that plane, hopefully a victorious group coming after that Ravens game. But now you're going to get home. This is going to be one of those very late in the evening, early mornings, where you're going to when you're going to get back and then have to get ready for a Sunday noon game against a very difficult opponent. But when you look at the travel, basically a 45-minute flight.
Yeah.
The league, did they do you any favors put you in Brazil? Not really. Did they do you any favors giving you the opponent with the Ravens? Not really.
No.
Did they give you an easier opponent after that game? Not really. Did they take you someplace where the team you're playing is pretty good? Yeah, they did. But they gave you a somewhat of a travel advantage. Mm-hmm. So that would be, if you're going to have to go play a game, that's probably the game after that. Most teams will take the bye after an international game. We've seen some teams, Jacksonville will play twice in London this year. Last year, if you remember, the Vikings stayed over. Yes. They had an international game, actually made it 2 international games. The Vikings asked, could we stay and just knock out 2 games here and not have to travel back and forth and those kinds of things? And the league said, sure, we'll let you have those 2 games. So, okay, as we go through that schedule, that part of it, and you mentioned you kind of broke it down a little bit. How do you feel like the first 2 games are going to go? Voch likes to talk about, in the doing like an acclimation period, like you're playing the Giants and the Commanders. Are you going to surely 2-0 is the best thing,
right?
Is there one game you're particularly worried about over the other? With those two,
it would be the Commanders, and
I was the same way.
It's Jaden Daniels, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I think week 1, it's probably ideal to play the Giants week 1 because I love their draft class. I mean, I think that we loved what they did. Arvell Reese, great value. Francis Mauanoa, we both had as the best lineman in the draft. Great value getting him at 10. Getting Colton Hood, circling back, like those are guys that I think are going to play big time roles for the Giants. But week 1, first game. Malik Neighbors with a knee injury.
Who knows?
Who knows? I mean, is he going to be available? Is he not? So I think that first game in, it's probably a good time to play the Giants. The Cowboys have a tremendous history with the Giants week 1. But Jaden Daniels, the issue with him in Washington's been health.
Yeah.
And that was the concern. You knew that better than anybody. Coming out of LSU, he'll put himself in harm's way sometimes. But you're expecting you'll have a healthy Jaden Daniels week 2 when you take on the Commanders. So I would say,
give me some of the additions though of the Commanders that you're looking at. The Commanders, Dan Quinn, they go from being an NFC Championship game the previous year. Everybody's super excited on board with the Commanders. I know that you picked them. You said, "Hey, breakout team, watch the Commanders," and sure enough, they did. But then injuries, as you mentioned. Talk about what you liked about their draft, if anything.
Yeah, so Sonny Styles was the cream of the crop of their draft class. They took him 7th overall. He's going to start for them at linebacker, and that'll be fun. You'll have Styles versus Caleb Downs. That'll be a storyline. How is he utilized? He'll now have a game under his belt, as will Caleb Downs. I'm fascinated, really, the guy that I circled with their draft class, Antonio Williams, the wide receiver from Clemson.
Right.
Now, they didn't have a 2nd-round pick, so they take him in the 3rd round. They're looking for some more offensive explosion. And Williams was a guy we did talk about on the Stag. Mm-hmm. Can move him all over the place.
Right.
Running back, slot receiver, outside receiver, special teams guy, kick and punt return, a dynamic type of offensive weapon. How will he be utilized that early in the season? maybe still trying to find his footing, but that's a player that you're going to have to pay attention to moving forward when you play the Commanders is Antonio Williams, the wide receiver from Clemson.
Okay, in week 3, then you didn't get, as we mentioned, in Rio de Janeiro, it's an international game. It's not an international game. It's played on a Sunday, actually at 3:25 here Central Time locally. That game will be on CBS. So the Ravens, we've always kind of talked about the Ravens, a very difficult team in transition a little bit with the new head coach. Talk about what you liked what the Ravens did or didn't like.
Well, the Ravens did what they typically do, where we're like, oh my gosh, a player is on the board, and the Ravens take him. So Ioane, the guard from Penn State, with their first overall pick. Now, that's going to be a player making his third start. Christian Parker, your defense up front. You feel great about your interior defensive line now with Quinnen Williams, with Kenny Clark. Tito Ogbonya, I think, is going to play a bigger role than really we're talking about right now, who they got over from the Chargers. So can you put some stress on that rookie guard? But Zion Young was a player that I loved. They needed pass rush help. Zion Young, I think, is a well-rounded player. I don't think he was one of the elite pass rush specialists in this class out of Mizzou, but a good run defender, can set the edge. I thought had a little bit more burst and explosiveness upfield than others did.
Yeah, you were on board with Young quite a bit. I think I had him a little bit lower than what you had him, but you watched the tape in Missouri, and there is an edge of explosiveness there. Okay, then in week 4, we mentioned about the trip to Houston after the game against the Ravens. You do worry about getting a little bit of some wear and tear, not only with the travel, but against the Ravens, a very physical team. Then you go to Houston, who has a very, very good defense. Who are somebody you like that coming out of the Ravens?
Well, they added
the Texans.
They added to that defense, right? Cade McDonald, the defensive tackle from Ohio State, could end up being the best defensive tackle in the draft when it's all said and done. Because for a big man, this guy does have some twitchiness, and he's slippery to get upfield. So you look at him. Look, it's kind of you're thrown into the fire there because the Cowboys, you like what they have at guard with Booker, with of course Smith, and then Beebe, who I think Beebe's going to ascend here in year 3 playing the position. But that's a guy in the middle of that defense that was already arguably the top unit in the NFL. You had another really talented young player in the middle there. Cade McDonald, the Ohio State defensive tackle, certainly is in a premium position there in Houston.
Yeah, this guy was like on a lot of boards, probably the number 1 defensive tackle when it came to, there was some questions, will he be, I don't think there was ever a question of will he be a first-round pick? It's where will he fall in this in this draft? Okay, we get a Thursday night game in Dallas, actually in Arlington. That would be against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's going to be a prime video game. Rueben Bain got to be the number 1 story here.
100%. I mean, Rueben Bain Jr., I think that there was a little bit of a split room from kind of what we've heard after the fact. I think there were fans of Rueben Bain Jr. within the Cowboys organization. I think that there were others that were like, the short arm thing is a concern. Look, I love the fit here for Rueben Bain Jr. going to a Tampa Bay defense that needed to add some juice. They get it. I love their draft overall. They also took Josiah Trotter at linebacker. Yeah. And they're looking to replace Levante David, who's been a stalwart, maybe future Hall of Fame type player there in Tampa Bay. But you get Trotter. Those are 2 young defensive pieces that are going to be cornerstones, they hope, moving forward. But it's all going to be about Rueben Bain Jr., the edge from Miami, and then Josiah Trotter from Mizzou.
Week 6 takes you on a trip to a place that you don't have very much success at. Dak Prescott getting a win his rookie year in 2016. That's a trip to Lambeau Field. You actually catch that one on October 18th. It is a Sunday night NBC game.
How about let's throw a curveball at you. How's that rookie kicker doing? Trey Smack out of Florida. Right? I mean, look, it's going to be about Brandon Cisse. That was their 2nd-round pick. They didn't have a first-rounder, obviously. Why? It's Micah Parsons. It's that trade. The Cowboys have theirs. But they took Brandon Cisse from South Carolina, and they need secondary help. They lost quite a bit on defense. But I do think the kicking game, special teams, we like to cover everything here on the stack. They're going to go with the rookie kicker here, and in a game that last year ended up being a tie, I think the Cowboys are better set when you look at just their rosters on paper right now. I think I would take the Cowboys over Green Bay, but in a game that could be close, it could come down to a kicker making or missing a field goal. So Trey Smack, the rookie kicker from Florida, who was the first kicker off the board, how's he faring in a Week 6 matchup?
After probably a difficult, tough matchup, as you mentioned, with the Packers at Lambeau Field, you have to buckle up and head to Philadelphia for a game against the Eagles. This is going to be a Monday night game on October 26th. A lot of some of the sounds of the war room, the audio was fascinating between the Cowboys and Howie Roseman and how they were able to kind of make the trades and move around there in the first round. Eagles, tough on defense, going to have to replace another offensive coordinator, have to replace an offensive line coach there as well. What did you think about what the Eagles did in the draft as well?
Well, they took a couple of big offensive linemen, which is kind of apropos for what the Eagles like to do with Markel Bell, the offensive tackle from Miami, and then Micah Morris, the guard from Georgia. Those are big body, bully type of, I'm going to get in your face and try and drive you, maul you off the football. I think both probably better run blockers than pass blockers right now. And I don't know if they're going to be playing in this matchup. So you look at the two offensive weapons they got. Is A.J. Brown on the team? I don't know. Assuming he's not, Mekhi Lemon, their first-round pick that they traded up for from USC, how is he adjusting? I think I'm probably going to try and play him in the slot quite a bit. To me, when I studied him, very similar to Jackson Smith and Jigba and some of their traits and skill sets, being able to make acrobatic catches. They play bigger than what their size is listed. Great route runners. But Eli Stowers is a guy that could be a thorn in the Cowboys' side here moving forward. Outstanding player, local product from Denton Guyer, converted quarterback to tight end, really good route runner, has a wide catch radius, is good after the catch. Now they've got themselves with Goddard and Stowers, a nice 1-2 punch there at tight end.
Do you worry a little bit about with Lemon and Stowers, both the way they play intermediate and underneath and up the seam?
Yeah.
Is that really Hurts' strength?
No.
That's what I'm saying. Are they going to be able to use these guys? Or is this the final year of Jalen Hurts?
It might be. I think that you've seen him where he's at his best. It's maybe just forcing the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And then the sideline throws where Devontae Smith can kind of be acrobatic there. So I think that is a good point. Now, I do think you've seen from both of these guys, especially Stowers, he can work to the outside a little bit more. But Lemon's superpower was dominating the middle of the field.
Right.
And with Caleb Downs there, maybe he can erase that.
Yeah, I think to me, when you look at this, though, they're actually asking Hurts to probably play with some players that might not be the most comfortable with. Okay.
Looking at a new quarterback there.
Here's the game that when I saw it on the schedule and I knew it was going to be an opponent that I was like, I'm actually terrified. And listening to our morning show here on 105.3 The Fan, it's the biggest spread right now. The Arizona Cardinals come to town on November 1st. Arizona, a 10.5-point underdog. I think the Cowboys' record the last 10 against Arizona is 1-9. It's not good. Not good at all. So that would be a noon kickoff at home against the Cardinals. Your thoughts about the boogeyman that's known as the Arizona Cardinals.
Right, and it's bizarre. I think going to Arizona, you have a lot of worries no matter who's on the field. I think some of the elements of it at AT&T Stadium's been the Kyler Murray effect. Now, Kyler's gone, so maybe that can help, but you're going to have to be stopping Jeremiyah Love.
Yeah.
Jeremiyah Love will be the focus. It will all run through him there in Arizona, and rightly so. You don't take a running back that high in the draft without him being the centerpiece of the offense. Chase Besantis, the guard from Texas A&M, he's now got about half the season in as a starter. How's he looking? Where are they even playing him along the offensive line? He's got some position flex. But it's the Cowboys' run defense, I think, should be the best we've seen in recent memory. But Jeremiyah Love's going to test you.
Then head for a Week 9 matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. They're at Lucas Oil Stadium. Colts, Cowboys. I think the last time the Cowboys played the Colts, I think that Jeff Saturday was the coach. Was that the interim?
Oh, you're right.
The interim situation.
Yes.
And I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for the interim coach. But Colts, the quarterback situation with Daniel Jones, we'll see how it is. They started off really well last year. So your thoughts about what the Colts did with the draft?
Well, a player that we thought the Cowboys might be interested in, C.J. Allen, linebacker from Georgia. They took another guy that I loved in A.J. Halsey, an LSU Tiger.
Right.
So those were their top two picks on defense. And in the third round, Jalen Farmer, the guard from Kentucky, who we thought maybe Dallas was interested in. They go with Drew Shelton. But those top two picks, I think probably are going to have to start for Indianapolis. C.J. Allen at linebacker and then A.J. Halsey Allen, he's taken on his former college position coach there, who's now in Dallas. You've got familiarity. That will be a storyline, I'm sure, leading up to that game.
It seemed like, again, the sounds of the war room, it sounds like that the lady owner made this pick.
Yeah, take the mic.
That she all of a sudden, the family was thinking, let's take the Mike linebacker here. So, yeah, good for them. We'll see. We'll see if the lady owner can evaluate.
It'll be a good fit. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Evaluate a little bit. All right, you come home. Now we got 3 straight at home. And it's once again, it's that 3 games in 12 days thing that we've dealt with here before. It starts off with the San Francisco 49ers, then the Tennessee Titans, and then the Philadelphia Eagles on Thanksgiving. 49ers, people were kind of a little bit up and down, mixed evaluation of what John Lynch and Shanahan did. I almost called him Schottenheimer.
Yeah.
And what Shanahan did. Talk about what you liked or didn't like about with the 49ers.
So their draft was all about, I like the players. They just took them higher than I think a lot of the consensus thought. Now, look, in hindsight, if you get a player that you love and he works out, nobody's going to care.
Nobody
if you
cares.
Take him.
Yeah.
But Dezon Stribling was a player that was a really late riser in this process, Brian. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, look out. They take him first pick in the second round, 33rd overall, Ole Miss wide receiver. They lose Juwan Jennings, and I do like the fit of Stribling, who I think offers a similar skill set but is a more explosive player than what Juwan Jennings has. The fascinating one is Kalen Black. 3rd round, they take out Indiana, and this is a player, they said they thought he was the second best running back in the draft.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
I don't either.
He certainly was a guy that split time in his own backfield there with Hemby at Indiana, but he is a bowling ball. I mean, you block it up, he's going to go and get it for you. He's got a nose for the end zone, but he must fit what they want to do with that system and running the football.
Yeah, running, catching, big with the when you look at the 49ers, but man, it's when they take a running back, they kind of get my attention because it seems like they've got a pretty good understanding of the type of player they want, plus the ability of the player.
And they're probably going to need him because McCaffrey's another year older and the health's been a question mark there.
Yeah. Week 11 noon game against the Tennessee Titans.
Ooh.
By this time, maybe the Titans have kind of figured out some things. Maybe you wanted to play them early in the season before Robert Saleh had gotten his defense together. Now you've got him in a late November matchup at AT&T Stadium. A lot of it have to do with what goes on with the quarterback situation there. So talk about what you liked for the Titans or what you didn't like about the Titans.
Well, look, the Carnell Tate pick I think was a big surprise. And ultimately, I think that pick really helped Caleb Downs get to where he got with Carnell Tate coming off the board. We thought, who knows, could they be a team that takes Arvell Reese there if he's available? They didn't. So thank you, Tennessee. I do like Carnell Tate. I think that he was one of the safer players.
But not more than Lemon.
Try a draft, but no, not more than Lemon.
Right.
I thought Lemon, in terms of upside, I liked him, but Tate was my number 2 wide receiver overall. You know what you're getting with Carnell Tate, and Cam Ward needs some help there. What I'm fascinated by was their next 2 picks. They move up. They get Keldrick Falk, who they take him at 31, and I love the value there. I think that's probably about where Keldrick Falk should have gone.
Absolutely.
And we looked at him as at 20. Could that have been an option for Dallas? He's a guy that fits what Robert Saleh on this defense likes. When you look at some other players, they've drafted Jermaine Johnson from Florida State when they were in New York, who they traded for, got him back now on Tennessee. Falk's going to fit in there. But Anthony Hill Jr. was a player that I know you liked him over some of the other linebackers.
I did.
He was my number 3 linebacker in the draft. I'm excited about him. That's going to be a game that's somewhat of a homecoming. Comes back, Denton Ryan player. That'll be fun to see kind of how have those 2 defensive players looking right now in that defense under Saleh with Falk and with Anthony Hill Jr.
And the Philadelphia Eagles then make their annual appearance on Thanksgiving. For this season, though, that will end the 3 games in 12 days. After that, though, is that you mentioned kind of that mini bye. Plus, you get the extra day. Week 13, you travel to Seattle. This will be a Monday night game there at Lumen Field is what they call that place. So the Cowboys coming off the Eagles game, the mini bye as you mentioned before, and then a trip to Seattle.
Well, how's Jadarian Price, the rookie there, looking at running back? And do they have Zach Charbonnet back? They probably do, but that will be the interesting player. I think Price is primed for a breakout type of role, played behind Jeremiyah Love there at Notre Dame. Big question will be pass protection, and can you prove you're a receiver?
Right.
Because as a runner, he was fantastic, but then they got Bud Clark, the safety from TCU, who I loved. Look, Seattle's got an eye for secondary.
Secondary, especially safety.
100%. And I believe they lost Kobe Bryant, Kobe Bryant, excuse me. He signed in free agency with Chicago. They've got a need there at safety next to Nick Emenwari. Boom. Here you go. Perfect plug-and-play guy in Bud Clark.
So then one of the latest buys I could ever remember for the Dallas Cowboys.
Since 1990.
Yeah, that would be the weekend of Brian Broaddus' 63rd birthday.
Oh, it's a party.
So that Saturday will be December 12th will be my 63rd. So that will be a bye week there. And then the Cowboys in week 15 on 5 days before Christmas will be in Los Angeles at SoFi to take on the Rams.
Got maybe a guy who could be the best tight end in the class in Max Clare from Ohio State. Now, the Rams are kind of trailblazing in the sense of Sean McVay brought in the 11 personnel when he first started there. Now he's moving to the 13 personnel where they're using a lot of tight
Parkinson
ends.
there and
Parkinson, Terrence Ferguson, who had a nice rookie year from Oregon, and now you add Max Clare. Clare could be the best in the group. I think he's a great blend of the size, the ability to block, but also as a receiving tight end. So watch for that. How is Max Clare developed? How is he as a pass catcher for Matthew Stafford? And then the hope is, of course, Stafford's healthy. Otherwise, maybe it's Ty Simpson, the rookie out of Alabama.
Wow, that would be a pretty amazing thing there. But yeah, there has been some questions about health late in the season. Let me just throw out a number to you. Dallas Cowboys. Yes, it is Seattle by Rams in Los Angeles. Dallas in the last 54 games, West Coast, 22, 31, and 1.
Wow.
So
I guess maybe it's good you have to buy in there.
Yeah,
break it up a little bit.
Games in the Western time zone have not been too kind to the Dallas Cowboys. All right, then now we start to get 2 of the next 3 will be at home December 27th against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is a Sunday night game on NBC. That would be week 16.
Yeah, look, Jacksonville had probably the draft class that I was most not in love with.
A little bit different the way they operate.
Very strange. And a lot of the players they took, it was maybe 2 rounds ahead of where I might have taken them.
I was thinking the same thing. Probably 2 rounds, yeah.
It was they take the tight end at A&M, Nate Borkshire. That's a player that really didn't have a whole lot of production as a receiver. Maybe they see some untapped potential there. He can block. He is a guy that you can move around a little bit around the formation. But Albert Regis, another guy I do like. He's got some quickness to him. I think he's an interior player. I'm not sure where they're going to end up lining him up there. But the best pick they had was Pregnon, the guard from Oregon. I actually had him right there with Ioane competing to be the top guard in the draft. That was good value. He should be a plug-and-play type of starter. But the rest of this draft class, man, this could end up getting that Gladstone guy fired if this doesn't work out.
Yeah, it is a little bit different the way that the Jacksonville Jaguars, like Zach's talking about, no 30 visits, no combine visits, really just pretty pure and simple about watching tape, and so they determined that the players that they got, we'll see. They might be way ahead of the game, or you mentioned there might be a new general manager, and they've had a couple different general managers in Jacksonville. Last 2 games of the season at home against the Giants. That will be a noon game on January 3rd, and then they finish up against the Commanders in the nation's capital. That will be a game they'll either be played Saturday, January 9th, or Sunday, January 10th. We do not have a time on that. If both teams are in the playoff hunt, probably be a later game because of TV. If not, they'll be playing out the string. As you went through these teams and the opponents, did you kind of feel like that the Giants, I know it's multiple first-round picks,
yeah,
but do you feel like overall the depth of what they did in the draft was probably the best of the opponents there?
I do. I think the Giants, and then I loved what Tampa Bay did. I do think Tampa Bay getting Bain. They also got Ted Hurst, who I was a big fan of in the third round. I think the Giants, Tampa Bay's draft class stood out. Baltimore, I feel like, always will.
Always will.
You know, Baltimore's just in a place where they just let the board fall to them, and they take a player that's pretty good. But you do have some questionable ones, and you got some draft classes. Green Bay didn't have a lot to work with, right? They didn't have a ton of picks. So I don't. There's a couple that you're going to wonder. Washington was the same way. Like if Sonny Styles doesn't hit for them, I don't know how good of a draft class you're going to be looking at there within the division. But I think clearly the Giants have the class that can certainly take them from a bottom feeder. If they hit on these guys and year one, they're impact players. Maybe the Giants are a team that could be a sleeper competing for a wild card spot.
Yeah, you kind of wonder with Harbaugh being, the coach there, and this could be very reminiscent of what Tom Coughlin did coming in, with the Giants. And that organization didn't, they have a history of stability and not firing coaches. But then all of a sudden, they kind of have a little bit of a bad run. Coughlin comes in. They get a couple of Super Bowls out of that one. So, here's Harbaugh, a Super Bowl winning coach himself, having a massive success, with the Ravens. It's just his time had come. But in this draft, clearly was with his fingerprints all over that draft. And you mentioned about if certain players would have had to gone in the draft. I was asking somebody at the Giants if Mawanoa was not there, who would you have taken with that pick at 10? And he absolutely said it would have been Downs. So the draft gods smiling on you that way. It started with Arizona's pick at 3, Tennessee's pick at 4, and then what the Giants were able to do at 10. I think really kind of 9 and 10, Cleveland taking the other offensive tackle.
Fano from Utah.
Right, instead of taking Mawanoa, but it just turned into too good of an opportunity. All right, before we close out here today on our show, we're getting ready to start the OTAs, the mini camps, things like that, a little bit later in June. A little bit later, we've seen them before. Early indication we're in the voluntary period. No George Pickens. Am I going to be talking about this a lot this summer, or is George Pickens going to show up when you and I show up in Oxnard?
I think Pickens will 100% be there when we're there in Oxnard. I think he will show up. I think it's important for him, too. I think that we've discussed the leverage and the differences between him and other David Mulligeta clients. Look, it's been widely reported now when he signs his tag, they floated around options. Were there other teams that were willing to trade him to get that long-term deal? There really weren't any that were going to bite. So I think for George, you want to look ahead and try and put your best foot forward, let the rest of the league know, like, hey, I'm here, I'm a team player, I'm happy, I want to go out and I just want to play football and be the best that I possibly can, the best version of myself. So I think 100% in Oxnard, we'll see George Pickens, and I think that he's even going to be there for the mandatory stuff when it comes
to I think so too. I think if it turns into you don't show up and you get fined, it sound like videos I've been seeing George kind of hanging out in jewelry stores and stuff like that. A couple of those watches he had on, I was admiring from afar. But so George, I don't think George wants to get fined and lose the opportunity to pay for those nice watches that he has. So anyway, but I was a little remiss. I lost my train of thought on that earlier. We talked about the schedule kick. If I could go back, do you have a number in mind for Cowboys wins and losses? And can you give me a number? I kind of should have done this when you got done with this, but it just popped in my head. But do you have a number of wins and losses? And do you have a number what you think it's going to take to win the NFC East?
I think 11 wins get you the division. I do. I think if you can be 11-6, you should be able to win this division. I think there's so many question marks with the Eagles. And what, did they win 11 games last year? So I think that 11 is the number that I'd look at. I think 10 gets you in. And 10 might have the division possibility of winning this year. But I look at this as going to be a 10-win team. To me, it's going to come down to, can you win the games that you should win? You should be a better team than Arizona. Are you going to fall like you did last year, or are you going to be able to get that thing done?
Well, there was a Chicago early in the year,
Carolina,
right, and Arizona. Those were three really bad losses.
When these teams went and had 3 straight 12-win seasons, the question marks were when they played against the other good teams, like you go to Buffalo and you get smacked. San Francisco, you lose, right? But they were able to get to 12 wins because they took care of the opponents that they should beat. Last year, they didn't do that, and that's why ultimately they didn't make the playoffs, to go along with a litany of other reasons. But can you beat Indy? Can you beat Tennessee? Can you beat Arizona? If you get those ones done, I think worst case scenario, you should be 4-2 within your division this year. So that right there alone would be 7 wins. And I think that you got a good chance to go to Green Bay and win this year with some of the regression they've had on their roster. And then it'll be fun. Seattle, the Rams, late in the season. Jacksonville, you don't really know where they're going to be at that point in the season. They were great last year. Do they have a little regression in year 2? But I think that this could be a 10-7 football team. That's where I'd project right now.
I'm thinking of all these questions after I ask this Pickens, and this will be the final one. I swear I'm going to do this. Give me coin flip. I'm going to give you a game, and you tell me if it's a coin flip whether the Cowboys win it or not. Okay? Ravens.
Coin flip.
Houston.
Coin flip.
Tampa Bay.
Coin flip.
Green Bay.
That's a coin flip.
Philadelphia.
Always a coin flip.
Colts.
They should win that game.
Okay. San Francisco.
That's a coin flip.
Seattle.
That's a coin flip.
Rams.
Coin flip.
Jacksonville.
They should win that game.
Okay. A lot of these games.
A lot can go either way.
I mean, okay. One more question. I hate when I do this to you.
Bring it on.
Give me a game on this schedule that you probably think they're not going to win, but they're going to end up winning. Does that make sense?
I think it's at Green Bay. Week 6.
They're not gonna be favored, and they're gonna win the game.
Yeah, I think that they'll end up winning that game. And the reason is I don't think Green Bay is – I think they've lost so much talent on defense. They did not go ahead and replace it. I think you've got some good intel with Coach Covington coming over now. You've got a coach from their staff. I think offensively there's going to be some question marks for Green Bay as well. And I'm really excited to see they've struggled – against the LaFleur, Shanahan, McVay type of offenses. Does Christian Parker and this new staff help with that in any way? But the uncertainty of Micah, and hey, I think you throw out the rosters and really the records. The Cowboys have not had a good history against the Packers, period. And they haven't won in Lambeau in 10 years. That's going to be a tough game, no matter if the Packers show up 0-5 in it. Right? That's not going to be an easy game for Dallas. But that's one where I do think Green Bay going into this season is probably going to be viewed as a better team than Dallas, even though I don't think they should be. I think they find a way to get that done, and that should be a momentum builder.
Of the ones you should win, Giants, Commanders, Cardinals, Titans, where are you at on which one of those presents the biggest?
Probably the Cardinals. It is. I mean, just being Cowboy fans and seeing the way this thing goes, Arizona has been a thorn in your side for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's going to be Jacoby Brissett. Should you beat Arizona? Absolutely you should. But also weird things can tend to happen. Tennessee could be an interesting one.
Yeah.
That's a team that could end up being better than we think. I think they did a good job this offseason, but I'll go with history, and I'll say Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona one scares the hell out of me. I ain't going to lie to you about that. All right, that's it for us today on The Stack. Zach, thank you so much for coming on and lending your expertise. I hope we painted a picture for everybody out there of here's your schedule. Yeah. Here are the guys that you're going to have to worry about. We've kind of talked about these guys all year, but we never had talked about them with a team. And now we have a team. So be sure that you guys tag us when you how about this?
Working on that schedule.
Working on that schedule. How about that? We were talking about this. This is how I started it with yesterday. and I started just putting them on a board. And then Zach and I were just in constant communication putting this together. Sorry, my writing is kind of poor when it gets down towards the bottom.
I think it's pretty good.
But I was trying to figure it out, and Zach was figuring it out. So thank you, partner, for what you did.
Thank you
yesterday, helping me out. So it worked out fine. So again, for my buddy Zach Wolchuk, I'm Brian Broaddus. Thanks again for joining us with Stack. We'll be on once a week, talking all things NFL, Dallas Cowboys. We'll maybe take some questions, maybe have a guest or two. Later on in the summer. We'll get you ready for the OTAs, the mini camps, and also get you ready for training camp. If you want to kind of follow along, we've got things going on at crownglobalmedia.com. We've got our clips pages. We've got all our content up there. We've got our merch. What else we got? We got a lot of things going on there. Everything that you imagine, anything you want to know about, we ask that you like and subscribe. If you haven't already done that, we'd sure appreciate that. So we will see you next week for another edition of The Stack. Take care.